Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout. It's so good to be spending what for many of you is your Sunday evening, and for us here in Australia a Monday, not morning any longer, we're well into the afternoon now. Hey, quick heads up, I've been having some tech issues prior to the start of today's show. So if suddenly everything just freezes up, I think that'll be our duck cooked, so to speak. And so we'll have to reconvene in the future, and we will do that. Just to let you know, we don't have a show for the next 2 weeks. Here in Australia we have, well, certainly where I am in Brisbane, Australia, which is in a state called Queensland, we have the next 2 Mondays are public holidays. So next Monday is Anzac Day, which is Australia-wide, and the Monday after that is Labor Day here in Brisbane, Queensland. And so no show for the next 2 weeks, but we'll be back in 3 weeks' time for a Q&A. So if you want your singing questions answered, that's the time to jump in and ask your questions. As always, I do my very best to answer your questions. But as I said, today, I haven't said it yet, we've got a special guest. And I'm really tickled to have today's guest join us, Kerri Ho from Songbird Tree. I'm going to introduce you to Kerri in a moment. And it's a name, Kerri's name is one that you may be familiar with because she's been on YouTube longer than I've been on YouTube. And so I'm really looking forward to spending the next 30, 40 minutes chatting with Kerri and just chewing the fat and talking about vocal identity. And this is so important. If you think, oh, vocal identity, what's that all about? Well, stick around for the next 20 or 30, 40 minutes, and we're going to get into understanding a little bit more about the importance of vocal identity and learning to love your voice. So I think without any further ado, we should get into things. Let's do it.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
Hello, Kerri.
Hi, Dr. Dan. How are you doing?
Look, I'm flying by the seat of my pants, as you know, prior to us going live, because you've been a part of me trying to, check the tech stuff, and I saw Mackenzie, one of my long-time viewers here on the channel. She's concerned that it's the same tech issues that we're having at the end of last year. No, Mackenzie, it is not. It's something else. Oh, tech. Kerri, I know you know all about the tech stuff. How frustrating is it?
It can be super frustrating, but I feel like you've got it under control, Dr. Dan. I think it's going to be fine.
Well, let's hope that I do. But sometimes these things are outside of your control, right? And yeah. But listen, I am so, as I said, so tickled to have you on the show because, and I just want to build a bit of context around why I'm so pleased to have you join me today, is because when I first started looking into the YouTube thing, and I said to my wife at the time, she's still my wife. At the time, I said to my wife, I said, Jody, I'm not going to become a YouTuber, but I'm just going to explore this YouTube thing. And anyway, so I jumped on and I saw, I went looking for singing teachers. What are people doing in the world of singing on YouTube?
Yeah, right.
Mind blowing. There was, even back then there was so much stuff going on. But then there was this Aussie on there. And her name was Kerri, and I figured out she was from Melbourne. Yeah. And I actually even did. You almost certainly haven't seen this, but this is going back 4 years or so. Mm-hmm. I did a video about my favorite 5 YouTube singing teachers.
I actually remember that, Dan.
Oh, do you?
And
I listed
I was quite
you
as well when I saw that. I was like, wow.
There's
a teacher out there who knows me.
And I listed you because, do you know what I loved about your stuff back then and still love about it today is your sense of joy and encouragement, you know, and I thought to myself when I was watching your material, I thought, you know, that's the positioning, that's the orientation I want to take. I want to be joyous about singing, and I really took your lead from that, and we had hoped, you and I, to connect on the show a couple of years ago, but circumstantially we weren't able to do that. So I'm so pleased. Here we are. Finally, we can hang out for a chat. So tell us a bit about your journey, and just in a nutshell, you know, and how it is that you came to have this thing called the songbird tree.
Okay, yeah. But first of all, thank you so much for actually having me on your show, Dr. Dan. Equally, I just feel so privileged and honoured that you would actually invite me. Really excited for our chat today, and just so glad that we're actually colleagues in the field, and we're both, you know, doing our thing to try and, I guess, serve the vocal community. But yeah, a bit about myself. I actually started life out in the corporate world. So I have always loved music and have always studied music, but you know, it wasn't something that I was really encouraged to pursue as a career. You know, it wasn't seen as safe. It wasn't seen as the financially viable option. And being Asian and being the oldest of two kids, I really wanted to do something that would make my parents proud. So I went along the corporate route and tried to climb the corporate ladder and, you know, do all that stuff. After 2 years of doing that, basically it killed my soul, and I went, no, I can't do this anymore. I definitely want to give, you know, this music thing a go. And at the time, very fortunately, I had an incredibly encouraging vocal coach myself, and I'd been having lessons for a while, and she actually saw potential in me to become a vocal coach. And she said to me, Kerri, I think you'd be great at teaching people how to sing. Why don't I you know, train you to actually become a vocal coach and to take over some of my students? And so that was basically my, I guess you could say, big break into vocal coaching. And from there stemmed like a, you know, 10-year journey of just getting professionally trained in all, you know, lots of different techniques of singing. So whether it's more of the classical one or bel canto or, you know, operatic stuff, but even the contemporary singing, the speech level singing, still, you know, I was such a geek. And in fact, to be honest, I still am such a singing geek. I just feel like singing is just a never ending journey of learning because, you know, love it so much. And so, yeah, that began my journey of just continuous learning. And I found that whenever I learned something new, I just had to tell someone. You know, it was just this urge, this natural urge that I had, which was when I've learned something, I just have to pass it on. And I guess that sort of really made me realize that this teaching singing thing, it's something I really love. And I love also just seeing people transform their lives and, you know, through the transformation of their voices, you know, confidence built, you know, overcoming fears and things like that. So yeah, it's just been an incredible, like, over 15 years now of vocal coaching, which I'm just so privileged, and I still pinch myself every day. So, you know,
so out of those 15 years, because you're up to 95,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is you're nearly going to get your silver play button, which is exciting, and over 7 million views on YouTube. So how long have you been doing the YouTube thing?
Oh gosh, it's been a while. I think it's been about 9 years, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a climb. Like, it's not like an overnight sensation or whatever. I mean, yeah, it takes time.
You and me both, Kerri.
Yeah.
It's the grind, right? It's
absolutely.
You know,
it's the consistency. It's showing up every day. Yeah.
And isn't that? I mean, we'll talk more about this today together, but you know, that really is the story of the vocal development journey, right?
Absolutely.
It is just the showing up every day and
that's right.
You know, pitching your tent and doing the thing.
Absolutely. There are no shortcuts or magic pills, unfortunately.
No, and as I've often said here on the channel, you know, the journey has too much to teach us, so you don't want to circumnavigate that journey.
Love
you know,
it. I love that.
Yeah, travel it. So how did you come to have the songbird tree? Where does that come from?
Yeah, so I guess, when I actually did start the YouTube channel, what I really wanted to do was create an environment online where anybody around the world who had a desire to learn to sing could have a safe space to go to. And in my mind, I envisaged a beautiful tree. And I envisaged this tree being a really big flourishing tree that could really provide a safe space for songbirds to come and perch in its branches, and find the safety and find the equipping and find the...
I think we're back.
Okay, yay!
I think we're back.
Sure.
Works now. Okay, so
Yay!
I'm so sorry, everyone. I honestly, again, I'm going to have to go on the hunt to find out where the technical glitch is, but we'll proceed now. And we'll see how we go. Yes, we're back. Okay, I can see it all in the chat. So
Yay!
I'm so sorry, Kerri. So
That's okay.
let's talk vocal identity. I want to talk,
Yep.
because, as I said, what I loved about what you brought to your channel was this sense of joy and positivity. What, and I titled today's video, "Can you learn to love your voice?"
Yes.
And it's an interesting question, isn't it? Especially for those people who maybe have not grown up with a sense of vocal identity.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around this idea of learning to love your voice?
Yeah, look, I think the relationship between you and your voice, it's so important because it actually has a direct correlation to the results and your progress.
Yeah.
And I think the question of can you learn to love your voice, the answer is absolutely yes, if you will allow yourself. It's actually a choice that you need to make yourself. As a singer, will I actually learn to love my voice? So will I make the decision ahead of time, even before I can do all the things that I wish I could do as a singer, even before I can sound the way that I've always dreamed of? Can I actually make the decision beforehand that I'm going to love my voice, I'm going to love the journey of getting better, that sort of thing. So, but the important thing to realize is that there is absolutely a direct correlation between the way we see ourselves and our singing and our voice and the direct results and our progress. So it's actually really important to develop a positive relationship, obviously, with your voice.
I once heard, because I do a little bit of photography. I love to do photography on the side, not on the side professionally, just for personal enjoyment.
Yeah,
and
why not?
And so I watch YouTube videos and follow some people online on YouTube learning to do the photography thing, just like people watch us learning to do the singing thing.
Yeah.
And one of them, and I honestly, I can't remember who it was, sadly, because I'd love to attribute this to them, but they said, one of the first thing that you have to do in developing as a photographer is to nominate that you are a photographer. I'm a photographer.
Great, love that.
I'm not just a person who takes photos.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Which, for me would be very easy to do, given that I'm by no... Look, I've had the great pleasure of teaching one of Australia's great photographers to sing. He's had Australia Post stamps and the whole deal.
Wow.
In my mind, he's a photographer, right? I'm just a guy who takes photos, but that's not what this YouTuber was saying. They were saying, no, you have to identify as a photographer. And I thought, that is so true. And I kind of had a bit of a slap across the wrist, because how often do we encourage our students in their singing to don't just see yourself as someone who sings. You are a singer.
A singer, absolutely. Super important. Super important. And to do that from the outset, right from the start of the journey, no matter what level you find yourself at. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so that's easy to say. It rolls off the tongue, right?
Sure.
And especially for ones like ourselves who say that feels like all day, every day.
Yeah.
We encourage people, you are a singer.
Yeah.
But But how does a person then put that in? How do you wear that? How do you become that? How do you embody that?
Yeah. I think one of the first things is that we actually really do need to learn to focus on what's good and not just on what's not. So a lot of the times as singers, we can be so super self-critical, myself included, right? And all we do is we focus on what's not working. Oh, I don't like the sound of my high notes. They sound really weak, and we just keep focusing on that, which we don't like. But what about actually digging a little bit deeper and asking ourselves, what is one thing I actually do like about my voice? What's already working? And actually focusing on that, because what we focus on magnifies. That's the thing. Like whatever you keep looking at, it just gets bigger, right? So if all we're looking at all day is the negative thing, is the thing that's not working, well, that's going to get bigger. But conversely, if we're looking at also what's actually working well, that actually, it makes you feel good. And when you feel good, you do it more. So, and you need to do more of the singing in order to get better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like focusing on what's working is super important. And I even go as far as saying to my students, write one thing down every day that's actually working really well for your voice, You know, and you'll find that people will find it when they actually sit down intentionally and go, oh yeah, I like the fact that I have vibrato, or I love the sound of my lower tones, and then oh wow, I am a good singer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's wonderful what something simple like that can do.
I remember when I was learning to play the guitar as a essentially a child, very early teenager. Actually, I might have been even pre-teens, and my guitar teacher, we got to a point where we were learning bar chords. And for those of you who play guitar, you remember learning bar chords. They're not easy. They're quite challenging to perfect. And I was getting really frustrated with them. They weren't working. The reality of the world. My teacher had the wisdom and the foresight and the experience, I dare say, as a guitar teacher, to go, okay, well, we've been working at this for a few weeks.
Yes.
Let's shelve it.
Yeah.
We're just gonna. It's not working yet.
Yeah.
Let's put them aside, and we'll come back to them. And we did. We came back to bar chords. Actually, not that long. About 3 months later, probably. As a teenager, probably it felt like forever. But it wasn't long. But it was enough for me to get my focus of frustration off that learning point. And when we came back, now I don't know whether it was simply because my hand had grown, because I was in that phase of life where everything's growing, or whether it was just I needed that cognitive rest. But when we came back, it didn't suddenly just all fall into place. It still required work, but for whatever reason, the roadblocks that had stood in front of me as sort of making these bar chords impossible, had opened up, and consequently I was able to then go on and spend the rest of my life learning bar chords. And I think we see this, don't we, in our students, where we hit roadblocks, we hit these points, as you're saying, and we can feel like we absolutely must bust through that roadblock before we can go on and continue the journey. And that's not necessarily the case, is it? We can circle back and come back and look at that.
And oftentimes it's very healthy to do so. And I think I would say that's exactly what you experienced, Dr. Dan, in your journey of learning bar chords. The fact that you took a breather away from it helped you to actually get rid of some of those mental blocks. I would say that a lot of those blocks that came, may not have just been physical, you know what I mean? Or I just can't do bar chords, but it was probably the frustration of it all was actually starting to get you mentally blocked on it. You were starting to believe that you could never do it. You were starting to believe that this is impossible. And those mental blocks are the things that we need to work on, when it comes to our voice as well, because they are big hindrances. A lot of the time we think it's all about just, we just got to do more technical practice. We've just got to do more vocalizing or whatever. But oftentimes, as you've just shown with your example, taking some time away from it and actually not thinking about that, it can actually free us, give us a little bit of freedom. mentally speaking, that then frees us up physically to actually do the thing.
No, I've just thrown Linda's comment on onto the Linda is our moderator in the live chat, and she said that's why I love the capo.
Yes, capo's the best thing
the capo is a great invention, isn't it? I agree, Linda. So that's, I mean, like we're highlighting that there's so much going on mentally for us, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yep.
You know.
Yes.
But what about the physical roadblocks, the very real, you know, that can get in our way, that we feel that we just can't get past? What do you typically find with your students are some of the challenges, which in turn then lead to making it very difficult to cement that sense of identity for the singer?
Yeah. So physical roadblocks, I would say that you can't keep doing the same thing again and again and expect a different result. So if you know, as a teacher, if I'm giving a certain exercise or 2 or 3 that it just, you know, my student just doesn't seem to be, I guess, taking on board, as a teacher, it's my job to then go, hang on, let's try something different, you know?
Yes.
And sometimes I find that just simply giving them a different exercise, because different students will take on better with different exercises. And I think that's actually really important for singers to understand. Everyone who's watching at the moment is like, don't immediately think, oh, what's wrong with me? You know, why can't I get this? There must be something wrong with me. I must be a failure. No, sometimes that particular exercise, just because of your unique makeup, just doesn't work for you. And it's actually your teacher's job to then go, okay, how else can we approach this? And so, yeah, I think that's one way. But another thing I also find really good with physically, like getting rid of physical roadblocks, is to actually involve our bodies in a different way. So, for example, let's just say we are just terrified of the high note in the bridge that's coming up in the song, right? And often what we mostly do as singers, myself included, when we're scared of a passage and it's a high note, we reach for it, right? We're reaching like, as if we're trying to like grab an apple off a really high branch, and our whole body tenses up, our mind tenses up, everything tenses up, and we can't do that, right? And so I find it really cool to just do fun things like, hey, pretend like you've got a tennis ball, you can throw it down, you know, at that point. Or you're going to give me a lunge, you know, we're going to do some like aerobics while we're singing. And you find that actually unleashes the physical roadblocks as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are a couple of things that I like to do that I find useful. Yeah. Yeah,
and I find that, you know, the reality is that we are an entire instrument. We're not just a brain, but we're also not just a larynx or lungs or...
Yeah, that's right.
And it is that development and cohesion of all of those things. And this is why learning to sing is a journey, you know.
It totally is, yes.
And why it is a lifetime journey.
Yeah.
Simply because, you know, we are constantly changing as individuals.
Right.
Our mindsets and our physical being, everything about us is constantly maturing, and therefore the voice is changing, and the way we feel about our voice, you know, is constantly changing, and this all then just reflects back into our sense of, you know, identity.
Yeah, that's right.
So let's I'm going to black hat it for a second with you, Kerri, if you will.
Sure.
And can I just say at this point, I'm so glad that we haven't fallen over again, technically.
Hey!
Oh dear, I hope I haven't, you know. So let's black hat it for a second. So so let's say you're a singer. You've been diligent. You've been working. You've been wrestling with the mental, you know, approach. You know, I continue to get in my comments in my YouTube channel, as I know that you almost certainly would, Kerri.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, it's just not happening. Yeah. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. So this is not a person, because I also get the comments in the chat, you know, I've been doing this for 3 weeks and it's not happening, you know. Well, okay. Okay, easy there. It's going to take you a little bit longer than 3 weeks. But no, this person has been diligently stepping out a process over a couple of years. What are your encouragements to those people? Because it's not just one person. There are thousands of those people out there.
Yes. Yeah. Look, my first encouragement is don't give up. I mean, singing is learning to sing and really, it's a journey, as we've just been saying repeatedly over the last, whatever it has been, we've been on this live stream. It is a journey, and it takes time, and it's not something that's overnight. So first of all, don't give up, so quickly. I think it's important for, if someone's been really diligent, going through all the, advice and all of that sort of stuff, and just feeling like they're hitting their head against a wall, I would say that it's really important to get to the root of, I guess, why it's not working. Because it could actually be, it could be that the diligence of, it's not the issue of diligence, but maybe the approach, or I'm not sure, this person might be just learning on them by themselves online. It might be time to think, okay, maybe because I've gone through that process already for such a long time, and I've sort of hit a bit of a wall, maybe it's time to actually look for a good coach, someone who can actually get alongside me, diagnose exactly what's going on, what's working, what's not working, and actually take me by the hand and and take me further, faster, but so that it could be that, but it could also be something else. Like if I can tell a story or two to just sort of illustrate my point here. So I had a student once who came to me, and every single lesson that I had, he just kept saying to me, I just can't sing high. And that comment just kept coming up again and again and again, even though we were going through scales and we were going very high. He was hitting all the notes and everything, and he just kept saying, I can't sing high. And so I sort of said to him, do you know where you are now? You're actually hitting some really high notes here. Can you at least acknowledge to me here that you can actually get it? And he was like, oh yeah, I guess so, but no, I can't sing high. And then as I actually asked him why he believed this, he offhandedly told me, I used to sing in a lot of choirs, and the choir conductor always put me in bass. And so for him, that was you can't sing high, therefore you're always assigned to bass. And the truth of the matter is that often there is not enough bass singers. And so he might have been assigned just because there weren't enough bass singers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So he was constantly had this thing in his head that he just can't sing high. So whenever he went into trying to sing songs that were in a higher range, he just couldn't do it. And for him, it was actually that mental block. But we had to dig deep. We had to dig deep and uncover that. Similarly with another student of mine who hated her vibrato. And she had a beautiful, gorgeous vibrato, Dr. Dan, like something that I find so many singers covered, and she had it and she hated it. And when we dug a bit deeper, it was because she did an audition once where somebody said, sorry, you're not suitable because you sing with too much vibrato. Yeah. And that has hindered her her whole life. So from that point on, she just said to herself, I'm not a good singer. Yeah. And so her progress got stunted. So I think it's really important to dig deep as to, what is the reason for my stagnation? And then to take the right step forward, whether that's getting a coach, whether that's working through the mental blocks, whatever it is, or trying something different, as well.
Let's talk a bit more about the labels that other people place on us. Now, more often than not, those labels, like little stickers that get put on us, they get placed on us more often than not, unknowingly, unwittingly, and unwisely. Yes. Sometimes, sadly, they're very intentional, and they're meant to even sometimes do harm. But what are your encouragement to singers who have had those labels? And they often get planted on us in our formative years, don't they? And that's when they're very hard to remove, because they become a part of our identity. Yeah. Yeah. I understand. And as you've just said, they can be even unknown to us, like they're unconscious
Right.
identities that we've just built into the fabric of our sort of self-awareness.
Yes.
What are some, and we're not psychologists, so we're not going
No.
to, we're
No.
not going to, suggest that, we do any deep dives into your psyche, but what are some of the things on a surface level that we singing teachers deal with? What are some things that you work through with students in that regard?
Yeah, sure. Going back to vocal identity, I think, an important thing to establish for all singers and with all of our students is that whether or not you can sing a high note or whether you can mix your voice beautifully or belt like Beyonce or not, you are still a valuable human being. I think we need to detach ourselves from that thing of my identity is the way I sound or my voice or what I can or can't do with my voice. I think when we get really narrowly focused on that and that becomes our whole identity, it can actually be really, really discouraging. And so my encouragement, I guess, to all of us singers out there is to know you are enough. You are enough exactly the way you are, exactly the way you speak, exactly the way you sing. It was just World Voice Day on Friday, on April the 16th.
It was.
And I love that we have a day to celebrate the voice. And I guess I just want to say to all singers, I celebrate your voice. However you are right now, you're exactly enough. And I think, and I know it's easy to sort of say that, but to understand that you are a holistic human being. You're not just a person who sings or a singer, but you are a human being who is valued. And you've got so much more to you, right? You've got lots of other interests, you've got talents and unique giftings and experiences, so much to offer. So I think one thing to really just, sort of get a handle on is, man, you're an amazing human being. You want to celebrate that,
Yeah.
And that, yes, those labels that can be sort of, stuck on us, they can be very damaging. And to anyone out there who has experienced that, like maybe a parent or a teacher or someone who you valued their opinion, sort of told you, hey, maybe you shouldn't sing or something like that, that can be very damaging. And I don't want to sort of, I guess, undermine that, right? But I also do want to say that it's also not true, in the sense that you are valuable. And if you love to sing, you can learn, right? That's the good news. It's not something that, you need to be naturally talented, Oh, no. I think talent is overrated. I'm sorry. I think, all of us, and including the celebrities that you look at that you think, oh my gosh, they must have just popped out of the womb singing. No, they didn't. They trained for years and years. Even the best athletes, they train for at least 8 or 10 hours a day, right? So I guess, I feel like I'm sort of waffling now, but it is a subject I'm very passionate about, and I think it's about just knowing that you're a valuable human being, and that you don't need to be naturally talented to be able to overcome, the issues and the whatever. So no matter what labels you give yourself or what others people have said about you, it can be worked on, and you can overcome them.
And I love the statement you made, just a few moments ago, and that is you are enough.
Exactly.
You don't have to be any more than what you already are.
That's right.
And if there is an expectation by others that you are more than you are, and there are always reasons why that might be necessary, but we're talking in the general society realm here. Then perhaps you're being expected to be a human doing and not a human being.
Right. Exactly.
And when you're singing, you were a singer the moment you were born.
Yeah.
Not just you, Kerri, but us in general.
Yes.
We are born singers. And I think one of the tragedies, if I could put it like this, of modern society is that we are so heavily exposed to the cult of celebrity that we see that as being what we have to be.
Right.
And we're constantly marketed to on the basis of our lack. You don't have one of these, you need one of these. Or you don't look like this, but you should. Or in the case of singing, you know, you don't sound like this, but you should.
Right.
You know, and it's really important that we, you know, acknowledge that within the frame that it is being presented, and
Yes.
that we recognize that we are already enough.
Exactly.
Now,
Yes.
then what we go about, we can still go about a journey of self-discovery and self-development and self-fulfillment that empowers and betters and develops and, you know, has a great sense of satisfaction in learning to do something well,
Yes.
but not with the view to perfection or comparison or
exactly.
a needing to measure up to something that
That's right.
we
That's right.
have been told we don't measure up to.
Yeah. And that's what one thing I really like to say often to my students is don't sing to prove anything. Don't sing to prove to anyone or anything, you know, because when you sing to prove, then it is from that place of striving, comparison, you know, I have to be perfect, I have to be the best in the world or whatever it is. And that's an exhausting, never-ending, bitter cycle, you know, of frustration. But when you come from another place, which is, you know what, I actually know that I'm already enough as a human being, but I sing because I love it, you know. I find so much joy in it. It helps me express myself. It also brings joy to others. Then it actually does become what you were talking about, Dr. Dan, that journey of self-fulfillment and self-discovery, and it's fun. I have to remind my students all the time, singing is fun. Isn't that why you started singing in the first place? But we tend to forget that when we're chasing perfection.
Yeah.
So I think another thing is progress, not perfection, is what we should be chasing.
I just know that our regulars in the chat today and those who are going to watch the show, because the show is mostly watched in replay, and hello to all of you who watch the show in replay.
Hello, everyone.
They're literally going to be feeling like they're hearing double of what I say. What I'm loving about what I'm hearing you say is because this is the stuff that we say all the time here on Voice Essentials. You know,
Great.
you just it's so, and this is why you stood out to me when I first looked at YouTube, is because it is about this. Singing doesn't have to be for the elite.
No, absolutely not.
Singing is something that most of us grew up loving to do.
Yes.
And let's also say, because just so we don't get emails, you don't have to love singing. You know, sometimes, you know, for example, I don't love to dance. It's not in me to dance, fortunately,
Sure.
because I'm not, you know, I'm just not given to doing it. But for those of us who are given to wanting to sing, then you're absolutely right. Sometimes we have to remember. In fact, sometimes the piece of homework I give a student is to just go and sing for the next week or two. No technical work. No. I just want you pull out songs that you haven't sung for years.
Yes.
And just sing with free abandonment.
Love it. Yep.
You know, because sometimes that joy.
Yes.
And dare I say, our identity gets buried underneath the drudgery, if you will, of learning to sing. And let's bring this sort of full roundabout back to the beginning, because we do need to start to wrap up.
Sure.
Because you and I could talk about this subject, I dare say, for the next couple of hours.
Yes, we could forever.
and I'm hoping everyone's picking up. I think everyone will be picking up on the authentic passion that Kerri has in this subject, that I have in this subject. Not because we've got product to sell or we've got, you know, singing lesson sessions to fill. You know, we're in the business of teaching people to sing, but it does come from a really core sense of passion and belief that it is the human birthright of every person to sing.
Yes.
And that is, I guess, the crux of what we're talking about here today, is that your identity is, firstly, more, as you said earlier, Kerri, is more than your singing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're a whole human being.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But we, in establishing that identity, many of us, the singing is a big part of that. And it's all about, just becoming better at it and developing it, and not wearing the labels and the stickers that others would put on you. Whenever I use that analogy, I'm actually thinking of a Max Lucado book. Have you ever heard of Max Lucado?
I have. He's a great author.
He's a great author, and I wish I could remember that he has a book. And I can't remember the title of the book where he talks about the labels and the stickers. It's almost
Right.
it's a kid's book, but
Okay.
anyway, maybe if I can remember, I'll put it in the description section of the video
Sounds
later.
great.
Kerri, thank you for coming onto the show.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank
Thank you
you
very much.
for sticking through the thick and thin of the technical issues.
All good. All good.
My great hope, do you know what? I think I've figured out, in trying to get us back online this second half, I think I've figured out what the issue might be. So, everyone, I'm pretty sure we won't have these issues going forward. Kerri, just quickly tell everyone where they can easily find you,
Yep.
and how they can help you get to 100,000 subs, and get your silver play button on YouTube.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Dan. I do appreciate the support. Look, yeah, check out my YouTube channel. So if you just basically type in Kerri Ho or the Songbird Tree in YouTube, you'll find my channel. And of course, I'd love for you to subscribe to my videos. And as you're watching the videos, if you're loving them, like them, share them with your friends and things like that. And then also just lots more information at my website, thesongbirdtree.com.
Yeah, and in a world, some of our people watching may not realize, actually the singing teaching community can be a little bit, competitive. I'll just use the word competitive.
Right.
But it doesn't need to be like that,
Not at all.
no, it doesn't. And I'm hoping that, as I continue to have wonderful guests like yourself on, Kerri, that, we can really, as we have today, show a unified, front and support each other. And so everyone, I want you to go and check out Kerri's channel, subscribe, show your support by subscribing, and you can check out thesongbirdtree.com, and that will be good. Thank you so much, Kerri. If you stick around for a moment, I'm just going to close up. And,
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. It has been a great pleasure. Oh, and you know what? She's a real trooper for sticking with me through the tech issues. And so are you all for sticking with me through the tech issues. And I can assure you that in 3 weeks' time, actually, I can't assure you that we won't have tech issues again. I think they'll be sort of an ever-present thing that every now and then raises its ugly head. But you stuck with us today, and if you did, I know you'll have got so much out of our chat. And today was very much about inspiration, encouraging you in the development of your vocal identity. And, sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need that reminder and encouragement to be the best you, not the best someone else. And so we're going to finish on that. We'll see you again in 3 weeks' time for a Q&A. I see there's been a few questions asked. We'll hold those over for next show. And we do these generally every Monday at 1 p.m. We're not doing it for the next 2 weeks. But hit subscribe, hit the white bell icon, because that'll send out the notifications to remind you that the show's happening. And hopefully we'll see you very soon in 3 weeks' time when we hang out again. Have a great few weeks, everyone. I'm Dr. Dan.